the fact that Clemson was able to put a game to bed in the first 20 minutes, you're able to play backups. It's a low stress game. Not a lot of wear and tear, I would think. How does that aspect of it perhaps set up Clemson for the second half of the season, if at all?
Yeah, they did what you wanted to see them do against a team like North Carolina. Mark said he was comfortable taking them to cover. I was not. I didn't even pick them to cover, man. That's how little trust I've had in this team. But, they came out and kind of took control from the very first play. North Carolina won the toss. And I was very surprised to see them defer because Clemson's defense has given up points on the opening drive, I think, in every game so far. They hadn't just been able to stop anybody. But seeing them come out, hit a touchdown on even on a trick play, a little double pass on the first play of the game, you could kind of start seeing the confidence build back up a little bit because this is a team that's just been beaten down on the field, in the press, everywhere, just flat out beaten down during the 1-3 start. I think the bye week came at a good time, but they were able to get the backup Chris Vizina in there in the third quarter and kind of see a little bit of what he's got. Fans have been clamoring for him since Cade Klubnik has been so lackluster through this 1-3 start. But yeah, I think it builds a little momentum as they get ready to head to Boston College. Again, I think it's, like I said a minute ago, I think it's a confidence booster. I think Klubnik in particular, needed a little injection of some confidence because he seemed to be rattled. But to me, that's about all you can take out of this thing, man. I was glad to see him put it to bed early. The offense finally, kind of got on track here. And we'll see if they can do it again. I'm certainly not convinced that all the L's have been fixed by blowing out this bad North Carolina team.
So, Jason, I did not catch any of Dabo's post-game comments against North Carolina, nor his preview press conference for the Boston College game. But obviously, he created quite a stir after some of the more recent losses, Georgia Tech and certainly Syracuse, where he's basically just kind of laying it out on the line like, hey, if you don't want me around here, that's fine. I'm good. I'll leave. And I don't know what prompted that. See, that's the problem with social media. I didn't sit there and watch the entire press conference, but I saw the statement and a pretty lengthy, not like 7 seconds, like a good, minute to 90 seconds. So it's just kind of funny because he's one of the guys in college football who's so secure in his position, or we think that he can just kind of say whatever he wants and be that forthcoming with, hey, I'm good. I'm going to keep coaching. I've accomplished all this. Hey, if you don't want me here anymore, that's fine. I'll leave, kind of thing.
Yeah, I cannot remember the first question that kind of, led to all that, but he was kind of heading in that direction already. And whatever the first question was, and he talked for a few minutes, and then somebody followed it up and asked him if the the negativity was getting to him or something like that. And that's kind of when he started to kind of go off the rails there. But we had that same exact press conference 2 years ago after Notre Dame. Before Notre Dame, when they were sitting there 4-4. It wasn't the exact same, but it was very similar. If you've been around Dabo enough, you kind of see that thing for what it is, man. That the media, everybody around here is just hammering on those players for how poorly they played over the first 4 games. Then all of a sudden, he goes on that rant. Nobody's talking about those players anymore. Everybody's talking about him, and how out of touch he is. All the focus is on him. So that's kind of how I look at that. The fans kind of get tired of hearing it sometimes, particularly, at that specific point in time, where they had just played so poorly against, a Syracuse team that I don't even think's all that good, not even before the quarterback got hurt. That's just, and they came in there and blew your doors off. I get it and I understand it, but, I've been around long enough to know what's behind some of that stuff. And that's what I think it was. I think he was just trying to put all that negativity you saw in the media and trying to put it on himself. And, he probably went a little bit too far with it, make no mistake. But I kind of saw it for what it was. Again, I saw a very similar press conference when they were 4-4 2 years ago about to play Notre Dame.
Hey, Matt, if I could follow up here real quick along the same lines, because I don't know if anybody's done this. Jason, you're at the news conferences. You can let me know if anybody's done this or has the opportunity to do it. But this is still, up until this season, still been the best program in the conference, even during this downslide, even post Trevor Lawrence 2020. This has been the best program in the conference, and it's not even close as a whole. You know, Florida State jumped up. A couple of teams have jumped up for like one season, but this has still been the gold standard in the conference. But still, there is a huge disparity, significant, I should call it, not huge, like top 3 in the country to like top 15 is what it's been since Trevor Lawrence walked off campus. So has anybody ever presented that to Dabo to say, you built this thing, it's remarkable, it was great, you're still the king of the ACC, at least going into this season, but look at the numbers from 2015 to 2020, what went on here, and it was, again, arguably the best program in college football, right there with Bama, versus what's happened since then. It's almost the same exact period of time. It's been a significant drop-off. Just to have him kind of respond to that.
Yeah, when you ask him that, you get the history lesson of winning the ACC 8 out of 10 years, and we've won 10 games every year, but 1 year since 2010, and that year we won 9. I mean, those are the kind of questions that kind of prompt those responses you get from him. He's got those answers kind of teed up. But, he doesn't get too in depth into that. He'll basically just say, "Look, man, yes, he will flatly admit we're not going to win it all every year. We're not as good as we were 5 years ago." But I still, he'll say, I still believe in the way we run this program. I think our program's in good shape, even though, the team might not be in good shape. I believe in, our culture and yada, yada, yada. You'll get those kind of answers from him.
Jason, just kind of picking up where you just left off in terms of the way Dabo runs his program. I would like to think that someone has asked him about Mario Cristobal in Miami with their NIL empire and, going all into the portal, like that's working. that formula is definitely bringing in results. So, like, is Dabo just going to die on this hill while Mario Cristobal tops him? I mean, what do you think it might take for Dabo to really rethink the way he does things? Like, would Miami need to win a natty or at least make the national title game? How does Miami and its success play into the Clemson philosophy, if at all?
I don't think it does. If we go back into the summer, I don't remember many people questioning Dabo's portal philosophy. There just weren't a lot of holes on this team, or it didn't appear to be. He had went out and got a start in defensive end, which was probably the biggest weak spot on the team. Probably waited a year too late to do it. Probably needed to do it ahead of last season, but he went out and did it, and then added a couple of depth pieces at wide receiver and linebacker. The biggest gripe most of the fans around here had going into the season was Dabo didn't go get a punter out of the portal. That was the biggest question, the punter, and he's been fantastic. Dabo has been adamant that if he feels like he's got a gap or holes in his roster, he'll address them in the portal. And I think when we get beyond this season, I think that theory is going to really be tested because this team is set to lose a lot. All that production, 80-something% production return from last year, most of that's going to be gone next year. You got questions at the most important position on the field at quarterback. You're going to have holes you're going to lose at least 4 of those offensive linemen. I mean, there's going to be gaps everywhere. So I think his portal philosophy, we're going to really find out what he believes come this offseason, because he said on more than one occasion that if he was, starting over at a new program and there was nothing on the roster when he took over, he'd build it through the portal and he'd have no problem doing that. He just he says he hasn't believed he's not yet believed he needed to do that at Clemson. kind of always said, if I have a gap, I'll fill it. And like I said a minute ago, that theory is going to be tested, man, because there's going to be a lot of production that leaves from this team, no matter how good or bad they end up being. There's going to be a lot of guys that leave. Then you're going to have, the normal few that leave through the portal that aren't even out of eligibility. And you had a small recruiting class due to a bunch of decommitments in the 25 cycle. You haven't recruited to the level that you recruited at, during some of those national title runs, even though the sweet spot for Clemson's kind of been between 7 and 15. But there's going to be a lot of holes on this roster, and I'm kind of anxious to see exactly how far he dives in, because I think, he might need to look at filling the most important position on the field after we saw, the backup quarterback, Chris Vizina, a little bit Saturday. I just don't know that he's the guy that's ready to take over this team next year. I mean, there's still a lot of time between now and then, but that's a decision that's going to have to be made in December. So we'll see what happens. We're really going to see what his portal philosophy is come this offseason. If he doesn't deep dive into it this time, it could be a long year in Clemson next season.
Yeah, we made comparisons off the top between Penn State and Clemson, but the coaching situation is where there's a fork in the road, and there's just no comparison between the stability and where Dabo rests with this program. It would seem as though, and I know I started getting questions here after the second loss. Oh, what happens? What's going to kick him out the door? What's going to get him fired? And I'm like, nothing's going to get him fired. It's going to have to be a couple more years. It'd have to be. There's no talk of that getting to that degree. Yeah, he's rock solid there. He's accomplished
his seat has not even begun to even get a little bit warm.
Yeah.
I think most people around here would probably agree that he's earned the right to go out the way he wants to go out. I mean, you'll find some exceptions to that rule, but I think by and large, most would agree with that. And I think the administration does too.
In terms of the balance of power in the ACC, I mean, Miami #1, but then, how wide open do you think it is for any other spot? Do you think that that spot opposite Miami and Charlotte in December is clearly Georgia Tech's to lose, or do you think it's a complete jump ball, #2 on down through 6, 7, 8 in the ACC? Just how wide open do you think this is after Miami?
It's the ACC, so anything can happen. We've seen that so many times in the past, but when you look at that schedule Georgia Tech's got the rest of the way, I just don't know. They should win those games. They might not. Virginia's surprising some people. We'll see about Louisville, but I would absolutely, at this moment in time, I'd probably put Georgia Tech in the driver's seat, man. I'm a big fan of Brent Key. As long as Haynes King can stay relatively healthy, they've got a pretty clear path to Charlotte with what's left on that schedule. They don't have to play Miami. I don't think they play Florida State. They miss some of the better teams, and the ones they do play, they get several of them at home. I think their hardest game left in conference is North Carolina State, maybe. Can't remember if they play Virginia or not. I have to look again, but as we sit here today, man, I think it's probably going to be Miami and Georgia Tech. But since I think that means it'll probably be Miami and somebody else, because I certainly don't see Miami dropping more. I could see them dropping one dude, just Mario Cristobal doing something, but something off the wall in one of those games. But I certainly don't see them losing two, man. That's a really good football team, man. Some people that didn't watch that Florida State Miami game might think that thing was close, but they blew their doors off. Miami just kind of let them back in there in the fourth quarter. That thing wasn't even close. They got it going on down there right now.
Well, I'm supposed to be unbiased, and I report myself to be unbiased and am 99.9% of the time, but I am going to admit right on here that I'm rooting for Virginia. That's all there is to it. I would love to see Virginia in the ACC championship game.
That makes two of us, man, because, I covered Tony Elliott for a while he was here at Clemson. Half the people that wanted to run him out on a rail when it was time for him to take that job because the offense was getting too stale and it was archaic, yada, yada, yada. Those same people begging for him back now. But, yeah, I got a little sentimental pull there with Tony Elliott in Virginia, man. It was, man, that game against Florida State you might have a hard time finding a better game the rest of the season. And he's had such a hard time of it, over his first few years with some of the stuff that went on up there. But yeah, you'll find a lot of people in this neck of the woods that are pulling for Tony Elliott in Virginia.
And
for
what's
sure.
interesting,
that would be a great story, man.
And what's interesting about their path is just based on name value and talent on the field. And I think this is a legitimate path that if you look at the rest of their schedule, they got past the two biggest games on face value on the schedule. They've made it past Florida State and Louisville, and they have an easy ride, relatively speaking. Of course, we're talking about Virginia, so they could lose any of these games. They're all 50-50 toss-ups the rest of the way for them. But they've cleared Florida State and Louisville. No Clemson, no Miami on their schedule.
Yeah, they definitely, there's a path there for sure, man. And they've got a quarterback in Chandler Morris that is pretty dang good too, and Clemson fans are pretty familiar with him, seeing his daddy is the former offensive coordinator at Clemson, Chad Morris.
No Georgia Tech on their schedule. No Georgia Tech, Miami, or Clemson.
That sounds like Georgia Tech's schedule. Once you get past Clemson, they don't get Florida State, Miami. I don't think they played Louisville. Yeah, they've got a path, man. It's going to be interesting. That is definitely who I'll be pulling for, is Virginia for sure, man. They're fun to watch. Tony's such a good guy, man. He's he's a really good coach, man. He's a lot in a lot of ways. He's like Dabo, which shouldn't be a surprise as much. Got his coaching career, or he spent most of his coaching career there under Dabo. A lot of the same traits that he's trying to instill in that Virginia program that Dabo's instilled in this one here in Clemson. That's absolutely the team I'm pulling for, man. I'd love to see Virginia and Miami go at it there in Charlotte.
Anything else, Matt?
Yeah, I follow Lincoln Riley at Trojans Wire, my regular job blogging about USC. What about Garrett Riley? I'm sure the disappointment that he and Cade Klubnik, it was supposed to be this seasoned, tested, experienced pairing. Why hasn't it worked out? I mean, obviously you fielded this question in a lot of the stuff that you do, but tell our national audience here at the Voice of College Football about why this marriage just hasn't worked out this year.
That's the $1 million question. When you look at what Clemson's got on offense, on paper, this should be a really productive offense. They were top 15, top 20 in scoring last year, and through the first 4 games, they just can't put points on the board. They were averaging less than 20 points per game. There are always things you can critique about play calling, and I don't dive too deep into play calling generally because it's hard to know what he's thinking, what he's trying to set up, but for me, the biggest thing for me is just Klubnik's not played well. He's just not seen, at least before the North Carolina game, he's just not seen the field well, pre-snap, post-snap. He's locking on to his primary receiver. He's not going through his progressions. There's been so many instances of him, forcing the ball into somebody when he's got his hot route wide open for big yardage. Several times in the LSU game, a couple times in the Georgia Tech game. I don't know if it was all the preseason expectations that he was trying to live up to, or if he got a little rattled in the LSU game because he was resorting back to kind of running out of the pocket when he didn't need to, instead of stepping up into it. He was escaping, running to his right when there was really no need to. He was making a bad habit of that over those first 4 games. So I think that's been the biggest thing, is just, the quarterback play's just not been what anybody expected. There were people talking about Klubnik being a first-round draft pick. That's gone quiet in a hurry, but that was kind of the talk over the offseason. you know, and being around him a little bit and knowing him a little bit, I'm sure, you know, maybe trying to live up to some of those expectations played a part in that, man. But I don't know. It just seemed that offensive line at Clemson's just not played well at all. I don't think they played all that well Saturday against North Carolina. You just couldn't tell because they were so bad. But you know, I think it's a lot of things that have combined to give us what we've seen. I think it, you know, the bad pass protections kind of made him a little, you know, gun shy or he's gotten happy feet because of it, and you know, it's causing him not to see the field well, and maybe scared to make a mistake due to some of those expectations and stuff. I just think it's a combination of things, and you know, it is just the marriage between Garrett Riley and Cade Klubnik is just not going according to plan. And you know, if you'd have told me 3 years ago when Dabo hired Garrett Riley that this is the way it was going to go, I don't know that I'd believed it. You know, you got this kid, and it's not like he doesn't fit what Riley wants to do. Riley recruited him while he was at TCU, so I mean, he had to think he was a fit for what he wants to do on offense. So, you know, sometimes you just don't hit on the quarterback, and unfortunately for Clemson, they might be missed on 2 in a row with DJ and now Cade, because Cade just hasn't gotten there. We're talking about a guy that was the top ranked quarterback in his class.
Jason Priester, the Clemson insider. Of course, the Tigers take on Boston College. They've got a trip up to the Northeast. Are you going to take that one on, Jason?
Yeah, I believe so, man. And I've not missed one in a while. I don't think I'm going to be missing this one either. It's going to be a little trek. But it's a fun place to go, man. Last time we were there a couple years ago, it was for the Red Bandana game, man. And that place, it was a night game like this one, and it was sold out. And that place was hopping, man, at least for about a quarter. Clemson was good enough to quiet them down, you know, after about a quarter and a half. But, you know, it was a fun experience, man. I'm looking forward to getting back up there.